everybody. Welcome to the call tonight. This is the 2014 Indiana Artisan Marketplace webinar series, and we'll get started right here in just a minute. I want to welcome everybody to the call. Let me give you a few housekeeping items real quick. If you're listening on the phone, I will try and keep the lines open so that if we've got questions, if you're listening on a live phone line, you can ask those during the call, and we can try and answer them tonight. If there is a little bit of static or background noise, I'll have to mute the lines just so everybody can hear. But again, if you're listening on the phone, and you can mute your line if you're not going to ask a question, that would help. If you're listening on the webcast on the internet, you can ask a question by going to the square box there in the left-hand corner. There's a submit your question for the event here box. You can just type your question in there. I think name, city, and email are optional, but just hit the submit key, and those will come through, and we'll try and answer those too if we don't get to them during the middle of the call, at the end of the call. And so, again, I want to welcome everybody to the call. The call is being recorded, and we'll give it to Eric to post very shortly after the event. Tonight's call is titled Post-Event Follow-Up for Repeat Sales plus Planning Your Next Show. And our speaker tonight is going to be Carol Bell.
Hi, guys.
She's an artist for Blue Moon Pottery, happens to be my wife. And my name is Jeff Bell, and I'm her helper, and I do a little bit of the marketing with her also. So with that, I think we've got a lot of people on the phone lines. If sounds pretty quiet, so I'm going to keep them open. And again, if you're listening on the webcast, make sure that when you click in to listen, you are clicking here to listen in via the web so that you don't get the delay. And again, if you're listening on the webcast, there are some links on the upper left-hand side. I'll refer to those as we go through the call. There's some examples of some of the marketing that we use, and you can click to see those live, again, just as examples. So we'll go ahead and get started. Our first slide is repeat sales start with the first sale at an event. And what this is just that, from an artist standpoint, you got to start somewhere. And I guess for us, for Carol's shows this year in 2014, we started marketing for the Indiana Artisan Marketplace back at her prior show, which was at the Indiana State Museum, where we took the printed postcards that the marketplace and Eric provided to us, and we handed those out at our booth to anybody that came in and expressed interest or had a question and seemed like they were going to be a potential buyer. If somebody became a customer and bought something, then we put the Indiana Artisan Marketplace postcard in their bag with the purchase. We verbally, and Carol did most of this talking, she told them about the next show, about the marketplace itself, and explained, what it was all about, who was going to be there. And then we asked for their email to send them a reminder to come to that show, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
And one of the things that we'll talk a little bit later and go into more detail about how and when we ask for their email, but one of the great things is at an art fair, you already have an interested group of people in what you do. That's why they're there. So it's a great captive crowd to try and help market and promote your next event. So like I said, you got a great interested captive audience, so that is fertile ground for you to talk about your next event.
And on the next slide is ask customers for emails to send them reminders. And I'll tell you a quick little story. Back in 2006, Carol had been doing pottery really since, I think, 1999. So we'd been several years into it. And at the shows, we always asked people for physical addresses because back then we mailed postcards to everybody. And so at that point, we had about 1,000 plus physical addresses for our mailing. But by the time you paid postage for that, and if you did that for a couple shows a month, it started to get expensive, especially if you're doing it, 10 times a year. So we kind of decided we'd start asking for their email addresses. And we found over time that about 70 to 80% of the people that you ask will say yes. They're more than happy to give it to you because they want to be reminded about the next show. And, it wasn't always that 70 to 80% right off the bat. We tested different scripts to see what works best. I've got a script that I use when I spell Carol so she can, run to the restroom and things like that. And she has a certain script that she uses, but we suggest that you try different scripts just to see what works best for you.
And one of the things that I do, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the sales process, where I insert that. But as I'm writing up the sale and giving them a total and they're pulling out payment, the phrase that I use that works for me, and it's important that you use it in a voice, in your own words, that you're comfortable with. Say it a couple times out loud before you get to the show so it flows easily and in a relaxed manner from your lips. What I say is, I keep a private email list to let my customers know when I'm going to be doing an art fair or have a gallery event. I'd be happy to add you if you like. And then I pause. A lot of times they'll interrupt me and go, oh, yeah, that sounds great. Go ahead and add me. If after a few seconds there's crickets and you don't hear anything, I want to give them an easy out, a relaxed out where they're not uncomfortable. And I will lean forward and laugh and say, and no is an okay answer. And then they'll say, oh, thanks so much, but I get so many emails already, blah, 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 blah. And then I can say, but you can follow me on my my website, and I'll give them a business card. But make sure that sounds comfortable coming out of your lips. If they have a friend, I'll look up and say, I'd be happy to add you too if you like. And you can pretty much read their body language to let you know how receptive they are to that. If, say, during that process we get distracted, somebody comes up and talks and I didn't really get an answer, I may ask one more time. I might say, I'm sorry, did you want me to go ahead and add you to my list? And give them an opportunity to say yes or no. It is kind of an uncomfortable thing to ask for because you're asking for personal information that they don't readily have or aren't used to divulging. And so make sure it sounds comfortable, but you don't want to pressure them. But I would say every single fair, I probably get a dozen people that come, whether they buy or not, they come into my tent and say, thank you so much for the email. I wouldn't have known about this show if it weren't for you, or I really appreciate it, or what do you have that's new? And so they are really grateful and appreciative for that reminder. So don't hesitate to ask, just be comfortable with it.
If you're following along on the next slide, it's up at the top, tracking report example. Since that period of time, as Carol explained, we've asked everybody for their email addresses. We've got about a little over 1,100 email addresses of customers from all the fairs that Carol does each year. And so before each show, we'll send out a little reminder, to come see her at the show. And really, it's not so much of come see her as it is a promotion of the show, but just wanted to show you some of the numbers. Up at the top, there's let me see if I can highlight it here. There's the subject line, come see Blue Moon Pottery and Carol Bell at the Indiana's Artisan Marketplace. We give the dates. And then even though this is a pretty good email list, you can see we get an open rate of about 32%. This happens to be 31.9%. Always have some bad email addresses that bounce. And then a lot of information just never comes back from the email provider. But the rates could be higher than that. You could get a 40 or 50 or 60% open rate. You never really know. It's technology. But that's typically what we get on a reported basis. Like Carol says, you get a lot of people that come up during the show and say, man, I really appreciate that email that you sent me. Remind me, I would have forgotten all about it. So as you collect these are the kinds of numbers that you get. And part of the reason that we show you this slide and tell you that only about 30% actually show opened is what's on the next slide, which is we always then ask for the physical mailing address for future mailings, because there's spam filters, there's firewalls, there's junk emails, and if you've got clients that you feel are valuable, we kind of have an agreed on level of asking for people that if they spend $100 with us, we're going to ask for their physical address while we're writing up their receipt. We want to mail them a postcard just in case they don't get the email that we send to them. So that's why, even though back in 2006 we stopped doing it as a practice for everybody, we still do ask for physical mailing addresses, because we know emails don't always get through, and especially if they spend over $100 with us. With Carol, which is a lot, it may be different, that number for you, depending on what you make and what your price points are. We want to send them something physically in the mail so that they don't forget and they've got that from us.
And what Jeff talked about, $100 was our threshold because for potters, that's a nice amount of pottery sales. For painters, clearly it's not going to be $100. It's going to be something more than that. But you set your own threshold, who you think are, these are nice buyers. These are people that I want to try and get back to the show again. And I'll talk to you in a minute as I go through the sales process about when I get that information. And actually, he's switched to the screen for me. I use a 2-ply sales book for every one of my shows, and it is really kind of my Bible, and I capture a lot of different information. I get them from Sam's Club. They come in a 5-pack and are $8 for 5 books, and there's 75 transactions per book. That becomes my Bible because I record everything in there. As soon as, the customer has a piece of pottery and comes up to me and they might say, do you take credit cards? And I'll say, yes, and I even give them back, and they laugh. And so I want people to have fun in my booth and it to be a congenial interaction. I'm a firm believer in, build the relationship first, do business second. I believe that money follows and flows to happy places. If you're an artist sitting in the back reading a book or reading a newspaper, expecting, people to just come up and hand you money, those days are long gone. That just doesn't happen anymore. So I actually get out there and interact and engage. The key word is engage. So customer comes up with a piece of pottery, hands me their credit card, and I immediately look at the name with my readers on so I can see it and write it down on the book. And then by that point in time, I'm writing down what I sold them. This may not work for all of you. If you're selling noodles, you don't need to write that down. But if you're selling something that you want to track, buying trends and product trends, particularly if you're introducing a new product line, this is real helpful for me. So I can look back next year when I'm getting ready to make stuff for the Indiana Artisan Marketplace and go, what sold well? I can also tell you what colors of pottery sell better at different shows. I can tell you that at Talbot Street, I better make a boatload of red stuff because for some reason, people that come to Talbot Street love that red glaze. So I write down for my historical purposes what I sold, what the color was, and at that same time, while they're, signing the credit card slip or whatever, that's when I will say, and just to let you know, I do keep a private email list to let my customers know when I'm going to be at a show or have a gallery event. I'd be happy to add you if you like. And then I'll write down their email address on that sheet on the top of their sales ticket. And then after the show, either Jeff or I takes this information and enters it into an Excel spreadsheet. So I want to know, do I have a first name? Do I have a last name? Do I have an email address? Because I want to contact that person again. How many pieces of pottery did they buy? Then is there a description? Was it a cup? Was it a bowl? What color was it? What was the price point? With all that, it may sound like a lot, but boy, it's a great way to help you run your business. You know what's selling, what's not selling, what at a show, what you want to make more of. You can kind of in your head keep an inventory of what you have, particularly if you're hand making each product, what you need to make more of. So, for me, that is really, really helpful information. And I do every year before that next show, I'll either pull up that Excel spreadsheet or if I'm down at the studio and don't have my laptop with me, I can physically pull out the sales book. It's a great way to, for your records. God forbid you ever get audited, you've got them. So for me, that works to have that sales book. It also keeps the transaction conversational and in a way that while I'm writing, I can be asking. I have a rhythm. I have a process. Also, for this over $100 buyer, I had her name from a credit card. And so, I've written that down. And then I will say, and Anna, what's your street address? I don't tell her why. She doesn't ask. She just gives it to me. For all she knows, I need it for my credit card information. It's just it's a fluid, smooth interaction with the customer. And I've never had anybody go, what do you want that for? Because I've done the work in advance to make it a comfortable transaction for the customer. So if you have a way to use a sales book, a receipt, some type of interaction that you can document that transaction or capture an email or a name and address, I highly, highly recommend it.
And let's see here. Again, just so you know, especially if you're listening on the replay, this is an example. We've whited out the email address here, but this is where Carol said she puts it at the top of the page. We've whited out their name. And then here's an example on the right-hand side where this was obviously an over 100 purchase. So we've whited that out, but you've got name, address, city, state, zip, and all the detail.
Right. I've even had customers contact me, a year or two later, say, hey, I saw you at Indiana Artisan Marketplace. I bought this huge bowl. I broke it. Can you make another? And I can even look back and know what glaze they bought, because sometimes what they describe and, what they think is a gray blue and what I think is a gray blue may be two different things. So it's really a treasure trove of information for me to be able to run my business.
And Carol, I'm checking here on the questions. We've got Peter from Cutler, Indiana. He's asking, do you use Square Reader for credit card, and how does your sales book receipt relate to credit card taker?
Okay, I don't, and part of the reason I don't, I have got a satellite operated. Well, no, it's a handheld. It's the old NURIT systems. It's a satellite run credit card reader, but it's a machine. Right? At the time, it invested a lot of money in it, so I'm like, I'm not ready to get rid of that. But the main reason I did not switch over to Square is because I personally did not want to lose that opportunity to gather this rich customer data from my customers. So it's costing me a little bit extra in processing fees, but for me it's well worth it. And we'll talk a little bit later about just some of the gains you can make from repeat customers from a show. But if you do use a Square Reader, and I think most of the art world has gone that way, I would see if you can't figure out a process while you're waiting for it to process through the Square, even if it's ready before you acknowledge to the customer that it's ready to complete that financial transaction. Maybe at that point introduced, by the way, while we're waiting for this, I do keep a private email list, or I do keep an email list that let my customers know, where I'm going to be next. I'd be happy to add you if you like. So you find a place that's comfortable for you to insert it, because you're the only one who knows exactly how long that financial transaction takes to process. So you can buy yourself a little bit of time there while you're waiting to let the customer sign it and all that kind of stuff.
And let me do this real quick. If you've got any questions, you're listening on the phone lines. The lines are open. If you have any questions, just go ahead and say something. If not, I'll just keep talking. On the next slide, repeated promotion or promoting next show, handouts plus told. This is really just showing you that what we did back before the Artisan Marketplace, we're doing again at the next show, which is the Marketplace, where at this particular show, we started handing out printed rack cards to people in our booth about Carol's next show, which happens to be Orchard in Bloom. So a couple things, if they came in, even if they didn't purchase something, but they seem really interested and excited, a lot of times they just pick them up themselves. We might have given a couple to them. If they ended up buying something, then as customers, we put an Orchard in Bloom rack card in the bag with the purchase. Carol verbally told them about the next show, and obviously we asked for their email because we're going to send them another show reminder. This also, and we'll cover this here in a couple of slides, Carol had these printed up several weeks before the marketplace, obviously, but she's also gone out and she's put those marketing materials at her retail location. So if any of you guys out there have retail locations, in and around town or around the state, getting all that stuff printed early enough gives you a chance to go out and hand those out, put those at the retail locations, depending upon what control you have. If they can be inserted in purchases, that's even better. But it's just another way to promote your next show, which again is, part of the strategy for driving repeat sales.
And another thing, as I talked about, I have a process that I use. As I'm handing the customer the bag, I'm telling them, and in your bag you'll find a brochure about my next show, Orchard in Bloom, and on that particular rack card, the PDF was provided by the Orchard in Bloom people, and I printed some off so I could hand them out in advance. So if you're doing a show, don't hesitate to ask the people running the show, do they have a PDF, something that they could send you where you could go to Staples and, for around $1, print off 11 by 17 poster to put in some of your retail places. But be proactive about promoting your presence at a show and the show itself. The other thing I will do, I don't know how many of you guys have seen my business card. If you have, it is not one that will get lost in the bottom of somebody's purse. It's a 4x6 card. It has a collage of images of my work on the front, but most importantly on the back, along with my contact information, it tells people where they can find my work year-round. So I will also say, and in your bag is my business card. On the back are the retail locations where you can find my work year-round. Noblesville and Zionsville are the closest. And I always, always, always thank them for their business and tell them I appreciate it. So that is, like I said, if they can't make it to the next show, I want to drive them to the retail location. Or if you have an Etsy site, tell them about your Etsy site. Wherever, however they can find you when they need more.
Diana Shamness, I saw your comment on the internet. I've got the lines open. Do you want to talk a little bit, if you can hear me, about what you do? I thought that was a great comment.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've got my technology set up right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, we sell cake mixes, so there's no immediate gratification when you buy our product, and yet they've just had a sample of our cake, and it's still, the taste is in their mouth. So what I say to them is, I'm working on a brand new variety right now. It's called Vintage Vanilla Chardonnay, and they go, oh, yum, and I say to them, then I say, but it's not perfect yet. It took me 2 years to get these perfect, and I'm still not finished with this one. So if you'd like to know when I get it finished and where it will be available, sign my email book there, and I'll be sure and let you know. And they go, oh, yeah, sure, and then they sign it. There's no problem. Just to make
Great idea.
Another product coming along. And then while they're doing it, I'll say, now I'm not going to sell this for the highest bidder. This is strictly my way to contact you, and I'll only email you if I have something important to tell you. And we got a lot of email sign-ups last week.
That is great. And I think that's an excellent use. And one of the things we talk about in one of the upcoming slides is, for some of you that may not use a sales receipt book to capture the email, a guest book is an excellent idea. For painters, if somebody comes and lingers in your booth, or photographers or booksellers, and they really like what you do, but they don't happen to buy that day, encourage them to sign the guest book so that you can tell them about new products or new events or that kind of thing. I think that's an excellent use. Very, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess this is mine.
Sorry.
The next thing, let's say the show's completed, you're done, you're back home. One of the things that we do is then after the show, we send out thank you emails to the customers that gave us their email address.
Jeff does that for me.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of this is just some data entry into an Excel spreadsheet that we upload into the email program, but it's basically a template. It sounds something like this. I think the subject line is actually this, you know, thanks for coming to my booth at Indiana Artisan Marketplace. And then it's the same thing. The email starts off with the same sentence and then just continues. I hope you enjoyed your blank purchase. We insert that in there. Most email programs allow you to do that and actually put their first name in there too. So we've got that all, you know, pre-programmed in the template. So it says, hey, John, you know, thanks for coming to my booth at Indiana Artisan Marketplace. Hope you enjoy your Ikebana vase for many years. My next show is, and then we give them the dates and the times. And again, in this example, Orchard and Bloom is Carol's next show, so we give them all the dates for that. I tell them, or we tell them, we will send you a reminder email when it gets closer. And then if you need any more blank, you know, products, pottery, whatever, you know, go to these retail locations or go to the website. So it's a pretty simple email, but we try and send it out within a week so it's still fresh on their mind. And Carol, even though, you know, this is all kind of automated and it's a template, you'd be surprised sometimes people, you know, email Carol back, say, hey, thanks, really appreciate it, you know, started using whatever that they bought. And so it kind of sets you apart as somebody that's, you know, a good artist that's going to follow up with them.
Right, and it goes back to, you know, building the relationship. It's affirming that they made a good purchase, that you appreciate their business. And like Jeff said, I've had people, you know, send me pictures of how they're using something that they bought or, you know, that they gave it as a gift and how much the recipient loved it. And so that is all part of, like I said, building that relationship with your clientele. And if they feel good about you and what you do and how you do it, they'll be likely to support you in the years to come and bring friends to events that you're at. So it's really an investment in that relationship.
And the next slide is pretty much the same as the previous one, except my recommendation, just as a marketing and advertising person, is that if you get a chance, you ought to be sending thank you notes to your customers. They're going to appreciate the personal touch. You're going to stand out from other artists who actually don't do that. You know, hopefully everybody's doing it, but you're going to set yourself apart, especially if you're high volume in terms of, you know, having people come to your booth. If you can't get everybody, just pick, like we do, a sales dollar level and try and get those folks addresses so that you can mail notes to them if anybody buys, you know, that or over any amount. And if you sell high dollar items, for example, if you're a painter that's selling $500,000, $2,000 paintings, this kind of makes sense to do this with not only your customers, but anybody that you meet, just to build a relationship with them. It's almost the strategy of treat them like a customer before they become a customer so that they can become a customer faster than they would normally. And so thank you notes, you know, it maybe seem old-fashioned in this kind of high technology kind of world that we live in, but, you know, they're going to appreciate it. Let's see. Next slide is, let me give this to Carol, or I'm going to do this. Oh, I think I'm going to do it. After the show, we update the graphics and the any type of pictures that we have on our websites and our Facebook fan pages. Again, this example, her next show is Orchard and Bloom, so we've already gone in on her Facebook fan page and we've got a new cover photo with all the Orchard event details so that if anybody goes there, which part of the thank you email to the customers does have a link that says like us on Facebook. Well, we drive them there. We want them to see the next event, not the one that happened just, you know, last week. So we're putting that up already. And same thing with the website. On the home page, we always have pictures and graphics and maps and information about her next show. So we've swapped out the old Indiana Artisan Marketplace, and we've put in the Orchard and Bloom, or whatever the next show is. We put in the graphics, the pictures, the dates, the locations, and the details. A lot of this information, you know, I hound Carol for and say, hey, do you got something that you can send me? A lot of it, we go to the websites of whoever is putting on the show, and copy and paste their photos and their logos and their pictures to use if they're not proactive in supplying that. Normally in the advertising and marketing world, you don't want to do that. Use other people's photos and logos and things like that. But I think in this case, it's okay because obviously you're promoting their show that, they want promoted. Plus you're trying to get people, to come there and come to your booth. And so everybody's driving towards the same goal. So you want to make sure that you do that as soon as you can, especially, Carol does 8-10 shows a year. There's a lot of artists out there that are doing 20 or 30, you almost have to have a schedule just to keep yourself on track when you do all this stuff.
And I just want to touch base real quick on the Facebook. We've really just kind of started promoting that a little bit more. I know some of you guys are genius at it. Christy Jo Bieber did a great job for the Artisan Marketplace promoting Facebook. So that has been I think a great marketing tool for us for Marketplace. I happened to ask everybody that came in my booth, just out of curiosity, how'd you hear about the show? How'd you hear about the Marketplace? And the vast majority were repeat customers. So once we have them, I think we've got them hooked. I would say the second biggest trend was Facebook. So there is value in that. If you can post pictures of works in progress and the finished piece, that is a really good hook where people feel part of the process. And it's, like I said, that goes to building the relationship. And back to the original email I wanted to touch on earlier, I use a lot of images of my work. For me, being an artist, we're visual kind of folks. So in that email, it's not just dry text of come see us here at this show. It's I'm going to have, these 6 products, for example, and I'll have images of all those 6 products, that I'll be bringing, along with all your other favorites kind of thing. But make it colorful, make it your voice, make it interesting to read and eye-catching. That's really important.
And real quick, whether you're listening live or you're listening on the replay, watching the video, online on the upper left-hand side of the screen, there are 4 links: welcome, listen in, slides, and ask a question. And underneath that, there are 3 other links. Those are to Carol's actual Facebook fan pages, just so you can see an example right now. If you're listening after the show, Orchard in Bloom is the next one. You can see what I'm talking about when I say a cover image. The website, again, right now it has Orchard up there. If you're listening to this late, it may have a different show. And then last but not least, there's an email example that you can click on. It just shows the emails, an example of, I think it's the Marketplace one that we sent out that we showed you the stats on before. So you can kind of get a feel. It kind of ties right into what Carol just said. It's really picture heavy. There's a lot of graphics, a lot of photos, booth shots, things like that, product shots. And so you're really trying to sell not only yourself, but to get them to the show. Hey, it's going to be something exciting. There's going to be a lot there to see and buy and do. So you're trying to get them excited. So that's what that is.
But I want to caution you, don't freak out if you're not tech savvy. There's some really nice ways that you can insert pictures into emails. Start slowly, but start. It's important if you look at that and go, oh my God, how did he do that? And it is my husband that does all that stuff. He is the man behind my marketing curtain who knows all the tech stuff. I don't. I know how to make the work and take pictures of it and send it to him. So don't let that freak you out. Talk to your friends, see if there's somebody who can give you some advice. But it's really, emails in particular are the cheapest, most effective marketing that you can do. So I strongly encourage you guys to dip your toe in the water and really start to explore that.
Next slide is print your postcards or rack cards one show ahead. And so, again, in this example at the Marketplace, they gave those, Eric and the organization gave those to all the artists back in January to hand out at the February shows. Otherwise, we would have printed those ourselves. Carol printed the Orchard and Bloom rack cards in early March so that she could hand it out and mail those, here in April for this May show that's coming up. My suggestion is that anytime that you're doing anything printed, you want to get the high-resolution graphics and pictures. If you're doing things on the web, you don't need that, just because things on the Internet, your goal is to drive down the quality so that they're not big, and they load fast. But on printing, it's the exact opposite. You want the highest quality that you can. And then my suggestion, just to kind of keep track of things, is that if you can, make a calendar with these print by dates and these mail by dates, related to your show, so you don't miss these deadlines. You're almost in the publishing business at this point, and it's a lot to keep track of.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, and I don't know if you guys saw in Eric's last email, they're going to get the rack card for next year's show done way earlier, so we can have this year to promote it. I think those of you guys that were there this year you could feel that there was a different energy and a different excitement about the show. And, I did not talk to a single person that kind of was like, it's all right. Everybody was thrilled, and they said, gosh, I wish we'd known about it sooner. So I just think that we are going to continue to build and grow this great, great marketplace and build excitement and enthusiasm. And keep in mind that as you're at these shows, whatever they are, whether it be a holiday bazaar or whatever it is you do, you have a built-in interested audience in what you do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be stopping and talking to you. So that's a great, like I said, great fertile ground to sow those seeds. Give them a couple brochures. Even if you have to pay for the brochure yourself, it's a great investment in you and your business. So I can't recommend it highly enough.
And Diana, just so you know, we use eye contact. There are probably hundreds, maybe even thousands.
What was Diana's question?
She says at the end of the program, would you please reiterate about the email service you are offering? I'm not offering it. It's just what we use is eye contact. I'm going to guess at the pricing for less than 1,000 people or contacts. I think it's $19 a month. It's pretty inexpensive. So
there's also MailChimp. I think I've heard some people use. Do a little bit of research, see what works for you based on what your email base, your customer list is.
Yeah, and the reason you use these, whether it's eye contact or constant contact, again, that there's literally hundreds. You just, from a standpoint of trying to send everything through your Outlook, through your email system that's on your computer, there are limits to what those services, whether you use Comcast or Gmail, what they'll send out. You get reporting with these services. That's always helpful. And you can build templates and reuse things. And you don't make the mistakes of, putting CCs or carbon copies where everybody gets to see everybody else's email. It's all, you can personalize it. So that's another advantage. Let me real quick, I've got the next slide up, but we've got a couple comments from people on the internet. One person said, post lots of pictures, like and share and comment on other Indiana Artisan pages and posts to help us all get more coverage too.
Absolutely.
Interaction gets more coverage and exposure on Facebook. This might be the same person. I also post the JPEG images of the show flyers on Facebook and a separate album of my current shows each year, and then share that link many times and even pin it to the top of the Facebook page. Great strategy. Yeah, it'd be great, if you got 150, 200 artists all doing this, commenting on each other's and reposting, especially that first week or two out before each fair. You could really drive a lot of interest and traffic to the show. So thanks, whoever sent that in. Those are great strategies.
Yeah, that has a great snowball effect. That's genius.
Okay, next slide. Real quick, the mail and the email schedule. My suggestion is that from a physical mail standpoint, try and mail 14 days, 2 weeks out to give at least 1 to 3 days for local mail to arrive. This gives the person at least 1 weekend to plan to attend your show. So hopefully they get it through the week. They're looking at it, and, on the weekend, maybe they're planning for the next weekend. Hey, this looks like a fun event. Let's go to it. Email, I would suggest at least 10 days out. Same reasoning as above. Carol said before, we use lots of graphics and pictures. If you've got video from, an event, or you've been promoted on TV or radio, or you've done your own videos, send those out too. Videos are even better than graphics and pictures. It gets people thinking and potentially involved, mentally saying, oh, this is what it looks like. I'll tell you a little secret that I do at every show. I get my camera or my phone out, and I take what I call stock footage of the crowds and then I have that, and then I know I can use it the next year to promote that particular event, So that's a little secret. If you're doing shows every year like that, get some footage, some pictures of your booth. You can reuse them again next year. Last but not least, and Carol may talk a little bit more about this, we've tested using incentives in the email. Like I think we use for the marketplace, $2 off a purchase. Print this email out and bring it to the booth, and we'll give you $2 off. Never test and see what works or what doesn't work.
Another thing, I'd gotten some suggestions from some friends who, let's say you're a painter or have a high-end item. You can just say, print out this email and I'll pay your way in. In other words, if it costs $10 to get in, I'll give you $10 discount towards your purchase over X. You could always do that. I'll meet you halfway. I'll pay half your admission fee. And you can apply that to any purchase over X dollars. So there's different creative ways to do it. But give them some kind of incentive, like $3 off, $5 off, $10 off, whatever you're comfortable with, or bring this in for a free gift, whatever that means. You can decide, but just be creative with your product and what you have. My husband is always saying, can't you just slap something out to give away? Whatever works for you in your business, whether it be a bookmark or, some little sample of something. That's just a great way to help build a relationship and repeat business.
On the next slide, and this is, kind of a monetary example that illustrates, I guess, the topic of this entire teleseminar or a conference call is that you want to get results out of these repeat sales. So based on everything that we did for this show, we had 15 people just tell us that they were repeat customers. They bought 24 pieces of Carol's pottery. Their sales amounted to $659. Now, we, wrote these in the sales book. Carol puts a little R for repeat, draws a circle around it. But we don't ask everybody. So all these people that buy stuff, we probably have even more folks that actually came into the booth, were there because of the emails or the postcards that we mailed out, and just didn't happen to tell us, oh, we bought your stuff. So this is a conservative number.
Yeah, I was going to say, usually if I don't recognize them, which many of my customers are collectors and, come to the show, hey, Carol, thanks for your email, that kind of thing. Usually I'll find out that they're already on my email list when I'm asking for their email address, and then say, oh, we already get your emails. And I'm like, great. So then I know they're a repeat customer because they had bought once before in order for me to be able to acquire that email address. But, like Jeff said, is true. There were a lot of people who came to the show who didn't buy from me this time, but that's okay. I wanted them to come to the show because I believe, as Eric has talked about before, a rising tide lifts all boats. And if they didn't buy from me this time, that's okay. They were there. They had a great time. I saw packages in their hands, so they bought from somebody. And to me, that's what it's all about. So, like I said, the repeat customers, conservatively, just at this last show, more than paid my booth rent. So anything we can do to help cover our costs and everything beyond that's just gravy.
And so here are kind of the numbers, and to Diana's question, eye contact, and again, the prices are different. This just happens to be the one we use. It costs $19 a month for up to 1,000 contacts. We've got more than that, so we pay a little bit more, but that's probably a good starting point for most artists. They give you 6 emails a month, so in this case, 6 emails a month per person. So if you do the math, you could send 6,000 emails. 250 postcards if you printed 4 colorable size, regular size card. $50 including shipping. That's through Vistaprint, your local printer, and there's other places out there online that you can get that. Prices, maybe even better. Mailing, all those if you did them first class. For a postcard today, it's 34 cents. So you do the math, that's $85. It's probably the most expensive thing. And then if you wanted to throw in printer ink and mailing labels, hopefully you're not hand addressing those. You could toss in another $10. So you add all that up, and it's $164 in terms of cost. Again, in our example, Carol sold $659 in pottery, so she had a $495, almost $500 gross profit.
Just from repeat customers who identified themselves as repeat customers.
So, from that standpoint, I'm not sure what the booth rent is, but I'm thinking that probably covers booth rent. There's some other, money in there for food and gas back and forth if you're living here in town. So it helps you get past that hurdle doing that, and it's profitable. So we hope this is kind of, been a little bit of a good, I guess, education about what we do, some of the strategies and the systems that we've got in place, to help use repeat sales to make a little bit of a profit. And, you guys can do the same thing, adjust it like Carol says, make it your own, see what works for you. But we think it works, and that's why we do it every show.
And like Jeff said, just the information he gave you were just from 15 of the customers who identified themselves as having been repeat customers, or they were already on my email list. So everybody else was gravy, and then out of that pool of everybody else, I got even more email addresses. And so the whole key here is building. You build a relationship. You build a body of work that you can track and kind of identify what sells, what doesn't sell. Build your contacts, build your marketing, drive them toward your Etsy site, your website, your retail locations. So it's truly an ongoing process, an ongoing cycle of sales and customer service that helps to make for a successful business. So, gosh, we hope you guys found value in this tonight.
And we're not quite done yet. Last slide is that the system and the strategy makes even more sense if, in our opinion, if you sell a higher price point product like paintings or jewelry or furniture. Diana talked about this. You use a guest book to try and capture those emails, whether you do the receipts or you're doing Square or that other stuff. If you sell a consumable item, food, candy, wine that needs to be replenished over time, having their email, having their mailing allows you to, send them reminders and drive them to your online sites or to your retail locations, which is the third one, so that in between shows, if, there's space in between, you can use technology to help drive sales that way. And, they don't necessarily have to come back to the next show, which is what we do. Predominantly are driving them to, but you can do a little bit of both. Drive them to your local places and shows, and if you have an online site, if you do sell stuff on Facebook or Etsy or any of those other online places, you can drive them there too.
And as Jeff said, the consumable is really good too, because you can offer, like I said, discounts or coupons or free shipping or that type thing that continues to help build the relationship and build customer loyalty.
So that is it. We've got some time for questions. We got about 10 minutes before the bottom of the hour. The lines are open. If you got any questions or comments, just go ahead and chime in. And while I'm waiting, let me check to see if we've got any questions on the line. Diana, anything else? Or Janet or Betty, anybody else on the phone?
I think you really covered a lot of good information. I know I, for one, am going to have to get more use of technology. I looked up MailChimp the other day, and it's free for up to 1,000 contacts. And I thought that was a pretty good deal, and I'm thinking I'll probably sign up with them. We don't have an Etsy store yet. Could you talk a little bit about what's involved in the Etsy store?
We aren't on it. I know Megan Wynn, who's another artisan, she's on Etsy. I think the research I've done, Diana, is that you can post your products up there. I think they take 2.5% or 3% on a transaction fee, something like that.
And Diane, part of the reason is because my inventory changes pretty quickly. And I'm so busy making the pottery, I've not really had the opportunity to explore that. But there are several artisans who do have Etsy sites. And as Jeff talked about, there's Megan Wynn who does the journals. And you might even want to submit that to Eric as a suggestion for a future webinar, because I know I think there were several of us who would be interested in pursuing that.
I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, my sense is that if you call them up or contact them, they probably have some tutorial emails, and they probably have a customer service department that'll probably walk you through a lot of that.
They probably have a lot of that on their website, too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As much as we love Megan, we don't want to volunteer her to train us all. So.
Oh, I have another question, too, if you have time.
Sure.
I've been thinking about contacting these mail order catalogs that carry gourmet foods and seeing if we can get in there. Do any other artisans have any suggestions on how to go about that, or have you ever tried it? I know that's a little off our subject tonight, but...
Yeah, no, we haven't. I don't know any off the top of my head, but let's do this. If any artisan is listening on the replay and you've got some information or suggestions for Diana, please contact her. Or what's the best way to get a hold of you, Diana?
Oh, probably email, and I should correct you on my name, not that it matters. It's Dana Chamness, and it's DAINA, Chamness, @gmail.com.
Okay, Dana, thanks. Sorry for the mispronunciation.
Believe me, it happens all the time.
Well, yeah, my caller ID, I'm trying to use phonetics to spell it out, so that's my fault.
It's okay.
Okay, super. So again, if you're an artisan and you've got some information for Dana on that, get a hold of her. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No.
Okay, let me see. I'm a little negligent on the slides. We've got the lines open. If you've got an internet webcast question, just again, submit that in the submit your question box. Click the submit button, and those will queue up. And let me see if we've got anything else, and we don't. So I'm going to assume we've answered everything. What's that?
Next webcast.
Yeah, so here we go. Yep. Thanks, everybody, for being on the call tonight. Sorry about that. We're trying to do about 3 things at once here. This has been the post-event follow-up for repeat sales plus planning for your next show, Indiana Artisan Marketplace webinar. And, whether you're live tonight or you're listening on the replay, we want to give a big thanks, obviously, to Eric Freeman, who organizes all this. He calls her his helper, Rosalind Emery, and to all the artists here in Indiana and Kentucky this year and all the Marketplace event volunteers. It seemed like a great show. Everybody did a lot of work getting the thing promoted and organized, and a lot of people there. Next week, Eric is going to talk about the results on our last little conference call or webinar, but we've got the dates already for the next one in place, so everybody must have done a good job if we've got dates for 2015, and those are here on the slide. It's going to be March 28th and 29th of 2015, so that's a good thing to know. Eric, as Carol said, has been sending out some emails, and he's got a list of artists already signed up, so that's perfect. And again, the next call is going to be a week from tonight, Tax Day. So everybody hopefully will have their taxes to the government. It's going to be 7:30 p.m., same phone number. We'll send out probably a different link, but Eric's going to talk about reporting on the 2014 Marketplace results. So we're all looking forward to that. So without further ado, I think that's it. We want to thank everybody for being on the call, whether you're here in Indiana or Kentucky, listening on the replay or live. Thanks. We had a great show.
Thanks, everybody.
Hope everybody made some money on it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye now.
Good night.